Everyone.
Good morning.
Morning, Star and
Good
Sam.
morning, world.
Yes, that's absolutely.
We were just talking about how all of us have all these lovely pets and that pets are good for our mental health.
They are. They are. Yeah, we have I mean, I know Sumit, you have a lot of pets. We were just talking about I'm down visiting my mother in Phoenix, and she's a huge pet lover. She loves birds, and so she has lots of birds, macaws and parakeets and so forth, and they're in addition to dogs and so forth, but uh, you know the birds, I mean, after a while, they give me I have a little bit of allergic reaction to them. It's
Oh no.
not so much. I mean, it's just the dander they have is hard for me to breathe. But it's part of
Right.
things with birds and so forth. But
I would say it's probably hard to do a Zoom call when you have macaws or those types of birds in the background.
it's always exciting because they're going quack, quack,
Quack.
right in the middle of the call. So it's definitely tough.
Yeah.
And then they have the parrots that also mimic humans, and so they're all saying that they're all like them talking. It sounds like a kid, or they mimic a baby crying or something like that. And people are like, "Oh, is there a baby crying in the background?"
Oh, well, at least it's not profanity.
Yeah.
Now, Sumit, you just found a baby bird. Tell us about that. What, you're nursing a baby bird back to health?
Trying to, so it's a really, really tiny little thing, just about less than 2 weeks old. And
Uh,
I think I must have read books upon books of how to care for a baby bird, make sure you're feeding them right. And because, I mean, I've dealt with baby animals earlier, but
mhm.
obviously dogs and cats are not as fragile as a little bird that's like 1/3 the size of your palm.
Do you know what kind of bird it is, or have you figured that out yet?
I
What is
had to figure it out because you need to figure whether that's a grain-eating bird or a fruit-eating one or an omnivore.
so what is it? What kind of
So
bird is it?
it is an omnivore. So you can feed the bird fruits. You can also feed chicken or fish in small limited quantities. And what amazes me is the fact that they're so genetically hardwired to not even accept food after a certain time because their sense of day and night is so strong. So because parent birds, they come back to the nest at night to protect babies from predators, the bird just stops eating at night and doesn't chirp, doesn't make any noise at all till it's early morning.
Wow, interesting.
So
Well, I
really
am one of
scary.
those in my house in Colorado. I did not. There's that baby bird nest right outside the door. A lot of people don't like the nests, but I just left it there because I think it's the cutest little thing.
Mhm.
The mama bird watching the mama bird feeding baby birds. Anyway, I just think it's cool. So my dad is a biologist, and so he did research. Particularly with the birds. So in Colorado, um, when I was a child, I think I lived in like 22 different houses by the time I was almost 20. And the reason why is my was initially a forest ranger and then became a biologist for birds. So I was raised like, what type of bird is it? My dad always has his binoculars,
Is that right?
always pointing. There's the bird. There's the bird. But he ended up on an island in Riverside Reservoir near Wiggins, Colorado, and it had 13 bedrooms. And my dad actually helped to save the white pelican from being on the endangered species list.
Really?
Can you
Wow.
believe it? But now, if you're around, you see white pelicans everywhere. It's so crazy. Now down here in Mexico, they're brown. But then he got into prairie chickens, and so I used to go out with him, and he used to have these big explosion devices that would shoot nets across in the prairie.
Oh, wow.
And then he would band them, and then he would go out and field them. And I was just his kid walking out there with the little, antennas. Where's the birds? Watching them booming, watching them laying eggs. And so yeah, it's and now he's married to his beautiful bride, his wife. He married, oh gosh, they're gonna get mad at me because I can't remember the year now. It's probably going on to a decade, I believe. But anyway, she is the head of all the park rangers at Rocky Mountain National Park.
Oh, wow.
So my family in general, I think her daughter is also getting into some similar kind of field, biology, for animals. So you're talking to somebody that comes from an entire world that loves animals. Now,
Fantastic.
I have big perros. Perros. Did I say that correctly? Dogs. So anyway.
Yeah, well, what a fun way to grow up in a family of that is in the conservationists and
Yep.
in wildlife. Yeah, you're very fortunate.
And I'm an only child. And so, you know, they used to just put me in the back and we'd go hardcore camping. I mean, I used to just put a teddy bear in the back of my backpack and hardcore camping.
Yeah.
I mean, we even stayed an entire summer in Isle Royale, which is off Lake Superior, and literally camped. And I think I was 4 to 5 years old, and it was just me in this tent. And that my parents were hippie types, you know, studying nature. And I remember a big moose, and I swear a big moose put his nose in my tent, but they don't believe me. But they said if a big moose put his nose in your tent, you would have been trampled to death. And I go, no, but I remember these huge nostrils looking at me in the tent. And they're like, no, you did not. You're just imagining things. Yeah. So that was my childhood. Very different than traditional, you know, no TV kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I eventually got to watch Howdy Doody, which, remember Howdy Doody?
Yeah.
It was the little puppet guy. Yeah, but that was on a black and white TV, and it was in the house in Riverside was a 13 bedroom. So it was a hunter house. So, but we got it on the off season. Well, I could go on and on with my stories.
No, that's great. So.
Yeah, well, I think it's where you are at, Sam, when you're not traveling all the time and taking care of your clients. It looks like it'd be absolutely beautiful. But you travel so much, taking care of clients. I know it's hard to stay home.
I like to be in beautiful places, but yeah, I think it's going to be a whole new skill set now, is traveling safe, you know, and you know, making sure you know how to get around. Because you know, I think that as the pandemic looms on, I mean, there's the skill of you know, because we've been sheltering in place for quite some time, but of course, I mean, that I think the mental toughness of or anxiety of having to be in one place is weighing on a lot of people. So I think that there's going to be a skill set of how to travel safe and be responsible. So
yeah, well, here in Puerto Vallarta, they sell those masks. Have you seen the most hilarious masks that they're selling now?
No.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know if you and I are all Facebook friends, but there's a picture of me in these sunglasses and this like Day of the Dead mask with with the big blue lips and the stitched big blue. And I have these blue sunglasses, and I think my dad goes, Shar, I'm worried about you. And I'm like, it's a mask and I'm wearing eye protection.
There you go.
So I guess my point is that it is a very serious topic, but sometimes even wearing interesting masks, at least lighten it up a little bit. So
it's an entire industry. So funny masks that have slogans or even ads on them, I see more and more of them around.
Well, you know, Bruce's sister, who lives here full time, was concerned because some really are good to protect you, but she said if you can blow out a candle or a lighter, then it's not a good quality mask.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And she tested us. I won. So anyway, but yeah, we'll get begin shortly. It looks like we're just on time.
Yes, it's at the top of the hour. It's time for us to get started here.
Sure.
So you want to
So
kick us off?
I will go ahead and get going. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today at the Mastermind of Leaders dedicated to creating workplaces where people thrive, employers reward, and customers love. Swear, customers love. So if you can be a company like that, that is my personal goal with my company. You just want to create a wonderful, positive environment, even though we're talking very serious things when we're talking about social distancing and wearing masks. But also we still have to run our companies in a very positive way. So I'm very pleased to introduce my panelists here. I am Shar Miller. I am a people strategist. I have had the absolute fortune to run and be an executive HR person, chief HR officer. I've worked in HR for, I don't know, 25 plus years. I don't know. If I say too many, then you'll think I'm old. So I'll just say that many. Also, I have the lovely experience being a career coach. And also I run my own company, Rocky Mountain Health Advocates. So everything that I'm doing with the people strategies, I apply to my company. And I'm also pleased to introduce Sam Reeve. He's a rewards strategist. Not only that, he has got amazing talent and he has a great team. He's also helped me with my compensation and total reward strategy. So he's the founder of CompTeam. And as you can see with his background, some of the companies he's worked with, amazing individual, and his team rocks. So that's on compteam.net, right?
That's right.
And then thanks. And then also Sumit Singla, he's a people strategist as well. Look at this, over 16 years, as you can see. Look at organizational design, web-being, storytelling. Look at the companies he's worked with. Amazing talent. And also, I just love the fact that he's from India, and he also provides us a bit more of the global perspective beyond the United States. And he's just been a joy. In fact, today he is going to be our speaker. He's going to be discussing preparing leaders for the future and succession planning that works. And we're all going to be jumping in and out. And then at the end, we're going to have open discussion and questions. Also, I just want to mention that later today, Sam is going to have a little where you can decide if you'd like 15 minutes with any one of us. And so it's a poll, as well as you can have a free TMA assessment. So at the end, we'll talk about what TMA is, because really that is the heart and soul of focusing on that relationship coaching and really having that positive coaching for your employees. So when would you like to put up the poll, Sam?
Oh, we'll put that up at a little bit throughout the event here to give people the time to join, and then they can go ahead and request that at the end. Or of course, you can just send us an email at sam@compteam.net, and we can send you that talent assessment, which is a really neat device. Like Shar is saying, you can with this assessment you can learn more about yourself, what your strengths are, and your talents. And it's a great conversational piece that you can have with your team. If you give this assessment to your team, it's a great way for you to learn a little bit more about each other. And it's based on what makes the TMA method assessment different than other talent assessments out there is that it's based on positive psychology. So there's really no wrong answer. It's just basically around your work preferences and what you enjoy and how you can apply that to the workplace.
Yes, cool. Absolutely. In these dire times, having a more positive way of coaching, as well as helping to drive performance and changing from the old method to the new is so different. I see we're already getting people joining us. So in the chat, please join us, discuss with us, be interactive. It looks like we have Danielle Johnson. Hello, Danielle. Thank you for joining us. So when you actually reply, just make sure you reply to all the panelists and the participants. And we love that interaction.
That's right.
So what are we discussing today? Succession management of the future. Go ahead.
That's right. And one other thing, Shar, I know that currently we're live on the Zoom platform as well as other platforms as well. So we have LinkedIn, we have Facebook, and Twitter and YouTube. And so if you happen to be on one of those platforms, feel free to put comments in the notes there. We'll come back and revisit those. Oh, and I'll try to monitor those as much as I can here, but when you're juggling
Right.
5 different platforms, it's tough. But so, but if you're happen to be on the Zoom one, you can drop notes here. We'll get to that, or if you have any questions and so forth.
Absolutely, share. And also LinkedIn is great. A lot of us are on that. So yes, please share across your platforms. Isn't it amazing when we used to have buzzers and Palm Pilots, and now now we have, I mean, even before that, with traditional telephones,
Yeah.
that you know how to dial. But now today we are just all over the place. We're all over the internet. So please share.
Yes.
It's pretty interesting. We are just learning everything.
So let's just jump into the topics. Sumit. I mean, when we're talking about succession plan, and really, it's when we talk about succession planning, it sounds so exclusive. It sounds so technical. But really, what we're talking about is development, right? I mean, we're talking about developing people, getting them prepared for the future, giving them a path for growth, right?
So giving people some development, you're also giving your organization an opportunity to stay stable and make sure that any of your critical roles are not unstaffed or lying vacant. And I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with succession planning, because I absolutely love the idea of developing people. I hate to see most organizations doing such a shoddy job of it, but then I console myself by saying that it does keep me in business. So if everyone did it wonderfully well, I wouldn't have too many plans to pick from. So,
but you're exactly right. I mean, I often go in, and in my clients that I interface with, and new clients that come in, I often find that succession or developing people for key roles is almost a thing of an afterthought. I mean, they really don't put much thought into that. So it's in a lot of companies, even some very significant mid-sized firms. Yeah.
I've worked with firms with, about 50,000 or over 160,000, and utilizing very traditional approach of the 9-box system. And it is pretty fascinating that the same names kept showing up on the 9-box every year, because somebody would move the name to each box, but not really realizing that they had phenomenal talent growth happening. And really taking and making succession planning a year-long event. It's not just, okay, it's succession management time. And so I love this slide about, 10% of HR leaders believe their succession program works. And because I've been one of those HR leaders where I just kept, it's in my file here, pull it up. All right, look at the names, and then take it to the executive boardroom and talk about it,
So tell us more about that, Char. I mean, what is the main reasons why some of these succession plans fail at companies? I mean, is there what goes on that makes this not successful?
I think it's pretty fascinating being the one that would sit at the executive tables that I did most of my career. And just the perspective from the boardroom of the talent in the workforce. And I no offense to certain executives, but I think many at the very top levels of the organization spend a lot of time in their offices, spend a lot of time talking to the top nonchalant, particularly in the bigger companies, about the talent and the workforce. And it is hard when you do over 100 emails a day, and you're responding, and you're doing your reports and your productivity reports and your financials. It's hard to get out and really talk to your staff and your employees and your talent, and really looking to the HR department to just kind of be doing those things. Meanwhile, the HR professionals are also slammed with hundreds and hundreds of emails a day, and might not really take the time to really understand the front line. And it's hard because in healthcare, of course, for HIPAA reasons, various reasons, it's hard to really get out and be in the front line and really understand how your talent is doing. So I think having progressive tools, and we'll talk about it later, like the TMA method and other types of progressive tools to really understand your employees, their passions, their drives, their talents, And I do think that HR leaders are looking for new programs, but they also know that there's a budget. So they can't spend $300,000 to hire consultants to come in. No offense, Sumit. And I know you don't charge $300,000, I assume, but it's very difficult for the HR leader to find the time to really invest in coming up with something new, innovative, creative, different than just the 9-box methodology.
Mhm. Yeah.
Also, I believe that technology is part of it as well. So if you remember in the olden days, some of us more seasoned HR people, if you recall that we used to have like a sheet, a profile for every one of our talent. And the problem is do you start from the top down or do you work from the bottom up? And oftentimes I saw in my prior careers, we would only focus on the top, maybe 10% of leaders in the big companies. And we would not look at the directors, the managers, the supervisors, and the leads and the frontline talent. I know that's for the big companies. I mean, that's literally how complex it is when you're working with, like for me, I was an HR leader of over 22 hospitals. So how does one little person, one HR person get out to all those 22 hospitals, you know?
Right.
So I guess part of it is just, I could go on and on, but I think I think it really needs to start with all leaders. All leaders need to understand succession management.
So what are you seeing, Sumit? I mean, what is the big failure in a lot of companies in having proactive succession planning? What are you finding?
So I think the idea of succession just isn't sold well enough to people, Sam. If, like Shar said, if say I'm a leader, I've got those 100 emails and 20,000 things to do during my day, and you're saying the onus is on me to groom a successor for myself, why would I do that? Unless you show me what's in it for me. So
yes,
I feel threatened by the idea that somebody younger, smarter, faster, and cheaper is likely to take over, especially in these troubled times. And therefore, I would probably do my best to throw a spanner into the works and say, let me make sure that anyone who is being seen as a successor to me actually fails rather than succeeds. So unless you show me the right career path for myself and say that, no, we're not trying to make it the end of the road for you, we're trying to create a new road for you, or you've got the freedom to chart out your own path, it's not going to work. And I'm not even talking about CEO succession. I'm talking about succession at all levels. So it's
yes,
a mindset that develops. I mean, I could be a team leader, I could be a manager. If you just keep on focusing on making me indispensable and saying, you are the man, I wouldn't ever feel like somebody needs to replace me. So while I yearn for growth, at the same time, I don't want to lose out on the strengths that I have, and neither do you. So say, if you're talking about, say, software programming, I could be a fantastic programmer. There's no reason for you to promote me to a team leader, because you'll get a team leader who's undercooked and you'll lose out on a software programmer. So therefore, you as an HR leader or as a business leader, you'd never ever think of creating a succession plan. So it would
yeah,
either stay on paper or it would never get implemented. And that's where this statistic that you see on the slide comes in. So the other part of this sentence is that more than 85% of HR leaders say their organizations have succession plans, but you see the abysmally low number of people who are saying the plans work. So essentially, it's a confession from the HR fraternity itself. This is a study of over 10,000 executives conducted by Deloitte, and it's across the world. It's not geography specific. So most of your HR leaders are saying, yes, there are plans, they don't work, which is absolutely
that
terrible.
is, you are spot on, Sumit, and you are 100% right. I think I love this slide. And it's very dangerous, actually, when you say we're cutting it that close. Imagine in the healthcare system right now, and you are down to the bone staff, right? Talented nurses, talented physicians, talented sterile processing technicians, whatever it is. Can you, and then the fear that I'm going to lose my job, you know, even at the front line. Why would I help train someone else to replace myself? If that means that I'm, 55 years old and I looking at the next decade and I really need to, save up for my retirement, why would I want to be training another nurse or another practitioner without realizing, oh my goodness, maybe there's another profession within this organization from a career mobilization aspect where maybe I can transfer to and even, increase my income by 5 or 10% and help my successor replace my position.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right, Sumit, when you say it is an issue at all levels, even in my teeny little company. And so I've really been talking about career mobilization all the time. So it's a positive thing. The succession program does not need to be a negative thing.
Yeah. So what are the benefits of doing this right, though? I mean, when we talked about a lot of the things that what happens when we're not doing this, but what are the great benefits? It looks like go ahead, Sumit. You have a lot of things to talk about here.
So the interesting thing is that none of this is really new or cutting edge in that sense. You do succession planning right, you've got a continuous talent pipeline. So none of your roles will keep lying vacant. So it's a way to ensure business continuity, which is obviously an important ask. There's a lower risk of failure because a person you're promoting from within is more likely to understand the organization, to kind of hit the ground running, than somebody you bring in from outside. So um, yes, there certainly is a risk of failure of the internal incumbent as well. But if you've got your succession strategy in place, if it's woven into your overall talent management process, I don't see any reason why it would fail. Uh, of course, you get to retain your top talent. You also get to attract better talent because people know this is an employer who believes in growing talent from within rather than simply buying the best of talent from the industry. It helps you in managing
Absolutely.
your cost because, I mean, no rocket science to it. Internal hires much cheaper than external ones, both in terms of hiring cost, money you spend on partners to find you the right talent, and also the number of days or weeks or months that the position is vacant for. So
But
organizational performance doesn't get compromised. We've already mentioned business continuity, and the last one is pretty interesting. It also means faster promotions. So um,
right.
if you're able to groom your successors, you're not indispensable. You can get promoted faster by saying that I've got 5 people who can potentially replace me. Maybe it's higher time. It's high time for me to take on a larger role, and it takes a lot of security. It takes a lot of maturity to do this. Can be done irrespective of age. So I've got a healthcare example where it, I faced the same kind of resistance that I was talking about, where senior people in their 50s or late 50s they felt that a succession planning mechanism is a way to push them out of the door and replace them with younger and possibly cheaper people. So we helped them create a strategy where we told them that um, when a successor eventually does turn up, you can still choose to be employed in an advisory capacity. We'll still retain you with similar or more benefits, and you can actually function as a consultant. You can function as an advisor. The
Right.
normal age of retirement would be 60 years. We're willing to keep you until 65 till the other person really develops into um, your replacement whole and soul. And the idea did find traction because instead of 2 more years, some of them were getting 7 more years to work. So that entire
That's
retirement
great.
planning phase came into the picture, and the idea was a huge success. Also, and I'm sure Shar would agree, it's a highly technical and specialized industry. There aren't enough great professionals around with the right kind of experience. So if you can retain that experience and at the same time get somebody who's learning the job better, it's a win-win for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Go ahead, Sam.
No, I was just thinking about that book we read a while back. I think Sumit, I think it was called "A Future Without Work" by Daniel Susskind. Was that right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So another thing in here that was mentioned is, as far as that his vision of the future is that, of course, that with automation and so forth, that there potentially could be less jobs and so forth. And part of that journey is where people are doing, there's more job sharing and pieces and helping with work. People are working 3 days a week instead of 5 days a week, and so there's I think that there's some benefits in this when we look at this in succession planning, that it doesn't have to be a person is going to you're replacing, or you're training somebody to replace you in the future. It can be more of a job sharing type of a deputy to you, for instance, or an assistant, or you're a trainee or a mentor that is helping you perform a lot of aspects of the role, and that can step in, or you can step in for them in various places, or they can take over at times. So I think that there's different ways of thinking about this.
I absolutely agree. You guys can see me just jumping out of my skin over this slide because as you guys know, I have a small company of 25 employees, going to be going up to 30 soon. We're growing. Every single one of these are an absolute spot on point. I will tell you that my leaders are my frontline leaders are very excited to sit down with me one-on-one next week to talk about career mobility and our pipeline. And we have a rule: we do not promote anyone in our company unless we do it from within. And we are not hiring managers or other specialists from the outside. We only promote from within right now, unless we truly have a true vacancy where no one's developed. So in our company, I think part of the reason why we're thriving so much, and when we do our interviews for our leaders, we identify through the TMA method and the questions related to their competencies, we have been able to identify our compliancy manager, for example. We identified we needed a manager to manage compliancy and HIPAA, and that is his role. And he also works from a wheelchair, and so we're also, but he's brilliant. He used to manage 100 employees in a large healthcare system, and he's awesome. So anyway, the point is that every leader is focused on promoting from within. Mm-hmm. And then when they see our company growing, we are constantly talking about the fact that new positions are being created. We took one of our talent advocates, and now she's our executive assistant. We also see that she might grow into some of the recruiter space. And so we want to start developing her into that area. So for our company, it has really helped us maintain our costs and make sure that we're not just constantly hiring mm-hmm. and burning out talent, but making our employees feel really good about the fact that we want you to move up or move as you call it, the matrix, the lateral move, or move into different positions. It really can work. And I would tell you that it is a very positive, exciting thing when employees know that if I can help the company grow and be successful, I might end up in my dream job, mm-hmm. And I might be able to, use what I'm very passionate about to make a difference with this company. And so every staff meeting, I get a chance in my little people segment to talk about these types of things. And I would say people are very happy. I've been told by many of my employees, they want to stay with us as long as absolutely possible because they absolutely love their job and working with this company. So that's very different than my corporate experience. So I guess where my mind goes is how can we create that same energy, excitement, and enthusiasm about a successful succession planning program that can address all of these factors and help the executive leaders that make the cost saving decisions really realize that this really can work if you can find the right program or or process. And so, and also be open-minded. The other comment I want to say is look how fast we're changing. Every day is a change, which means every day there's a different need in the organization regarding our talent.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, it's constant. I mean, look at how fast our world changed in the last year, 6 months. Look,
Yeah.
and then I know you guys are more the tech gurus. Oh my goodness, technology. I mean, I can't keep up with technology. You already know that, but
Yeah.
it's like, how do you keep up on the training? How do you keep up on the changes? It's just constant.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, that's a good point, especially what Harold is saying here in the chat. I mean, and today's workforce is changing. The workforce needs are changing. You know,
right.
where the old succession planning model is what was in the standpoint of employees and within a company and growing them within the company. But as Harold points out here in the chat, that there's a lot more gig workers and mobile worker. The workforce is more agile than ever. And so, I would say that we can still look at the different ways that we're utilizing the workforce as a whole, and certainly and internally. And I'd love to hear your point of view on this, Sumit, as far as the future of succession planning and the process. But I think that if we look at the internal workforce and developing successors that are full-time at our company, and then also looking at gig workers that can step in, I think that's something that we can pull into the model. So what do you think?
So that's an interesting question, and just a little bit of trivia about VUCA. The acronym was actually coined in 1987. So
I love it when you meow.
Yeah.
or you can hear him.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So there's, I mean, succession planning, it probably began during the times when we were ruled by kings and emperors, and they would have children, and they'd start training them right from a young age on arts, music, governance, finance, economy, everything. So, and then hope that some of that knowledge would stick. And the sad part is that modern organizations, a lot of them, they still follow the same approach without understanding what is the unique skill set of that person, what is the ambition or the aspiration of that individual as well. So if it's a slightly tangential analogy that I'm using, but if there's a king, not all of the children might want to be the next kings or queens, right? So somebody might
Right.
want to be um, more of a finance guru. Somebody might want to be more of political strategy or
Right.
something of that sort.
Or in
So
the classic storyline where you have a benevolent king and then his son, the tyrant, comes up and maybe not to be the best leader, right? So I think that we can see that in some of our businesses as well.
Yeah, so this has
Absolutely.
gone along in all history, right? That's an amazing perspective. I would say, can I mention one other thing about the gig worker concept?
Oh yeah.
I would just say that I think it can be very successful with a gig worker, but also at the same time, it's hard because I've also been an interim HR director, and to be put in as a gig worker, as you call it, as an interim HR director into a company and work there for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, or whatever I've done. It is challenging as a gig worker because you don't understand the culture, the politics, the bureaucracy, the communication issues, particularly in the HR or OD related industry. And you are just put on a fast and furious train to try to figure
Yeah.
what is it that I can contribute here. But I
Yeah,
do
it's true.
agree. Go
It's
ahead.
true, but I do think modern gig workers have a way of, I mean, the good ones in their experience in how much their investment into the company. and to the extent that the company allows this, they can become quite an extension of the workforce.
Sure.
Even on a part-time basis, I think that if the company embraces them as a true worker and a contributor, that they will share the culture and so forth, or knowledge, that internal knowledge for that gig worker to be successful in that environment. So I think that when we're doing this, Shar, I mean, I think, you know, gig work is still a new concept, but I think companies are pulling this into their workforce model and knowing that for us to really have a resiliency in our talent model, you know, gig workers play a part in that they are agile. We can bring them in when we need them, and then we can not use them when we don't need them, and it creates that flexibility. But I think that if companies have the right mindset, that they can
Right.
bring those gig workers in and have them part of the culture and understand the, you know, what is going on in the company to be effective.
Well, and I would also say, I think an excellent gig worker can come in as be like a leader, as coach, and bring a new knowledge and skill set to help the talent within the organization learn those new talents, the skill sets, the approaches to use. So perhaps it's the gig worker is only there for a year.
Yeah.
But ultimately, when they leave just like when you walk into a forest, you leave it better than the way you found it. You don't, you know, you leave it more improved. Well, I think a good gig worker learns to do the same when they walk into that culture.
And that's an excellent point. I know this topic is not on gig workers, but it is quite important to when we think about succession, and especially that point you just brought up. And so I'm from and I'm surrounded by Native Americans, so and my part of the area. So as in the cowboy language, they were called Indians, right? Which we have a true Indian on our on the call here. But
yes.
So the point is that in their folklore, they have a character that's called Copapelli, and that Copapelli would go from tribe to tribe and was a musician that would spread knowledge and story and so forth. And that's what I think about the modern gig worker today, is that they do bring in that knowledge from a diverse knowledge from other industries that can pollinate and create new thought and idea in our organizations to make ourselves even better. So,
in a way that doesn't threaten the employee or the population, you know. Right. And I think it takes a very special skill. So I definitely agree with that point. So this is a really interesting slide. Sumit, did you want to tell us about this?
Sure. And just on the point of gig workers and how they fit into the succession scheme of things. So also answering the question about how succession is changing. So gig work itself has transformed, and earlier gig workers were more of people you could simply outsource some of the relatively low complexity and high volume kind of things. So you get somebody to essentially produce the widgets, like Shar would say. But now there are companies that actually outsource or assign gig workers to do things like managing the entire marketing function, or even managing things like culture and diversity. Because the idea is you bring in somebody from outside, or somebody who's not a permanent part of the organization. You put them on a rolling kind of a contract and say, the idea is for your role to deliver, and we're looking at basically freshening things up. So that's where this slide comes into the picture. And the reason one box is highlighted in blue is because this, in my opinion, is absolutely key to understanding what his succession plan should be like. So are you even aware of your overall business strategy? Do you know where the organization is heading towards? Once you're clear on that, that's when the other pieces will fall into place. So step one, what is your business strategy? Are you looking at being a market disruptor? Are you looking at being conservative and maintaining your market share? Are you looking at constantly throwing new products into the market and hoping 10% of them stick? What's your strategy like? To accomplish this kind of strategy, what are some of the roles that you require? So at a leadership level as well as at a non-leadership level. So you might have an individual contributor role, which is absolutely key to your success. So that role needs to be part of your critical roles list as well. Or even if it's just a team manager role and not really a C-suite position. What are the talents and competencies required for each of these roles? You need to map that out and then carry out the assessment of the talent pool that you have. Um, the reason key talent feeds into the strategy and into the talent pool is because, um, say, you're dealing with a basketball team, you can't possibly change. So you're a new manager who's taken over. You cannot possibly fire all the existing players and replace them with a new pool, right? So your strategy on whether you're aiming at the playoffs, uh, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you just trying to hold on to your position in the table from last year? Your strategy also gets impacted by what kind of talent you already have, and you can, over a period of years, over say 3 to 5 years, you can say that right now we are here, we are aiming to get here, but you cannot suddenly just say, I'll get up and win every possible championship there is to win.
Are you
So
kidding
what?
me? Were you watching the same sport show I was watching this morning? Because I can't remember these two sport guy names, but you guys probably would know, maybe. But they were talking about the best, the top players that could not only play baseball, but they can also play football and have been in the both championships. Now I don't even remember the name, but I mean, you're absolutely right. Relative to the sport, I mean, to have an athlete or your employee be able to do multiple roles, that is true championship, right? It's phenomenal that people can have so many talents, and we don't even realize the talents, the capabilities and competencies that people have.
It can be, but I totally understand Sim's point. I mean, it's important to make sure that those, I mean, if you can bring in a top player or that in from a different area or a different company, and then plug them into the team at your company, and they may not perform as well because of how they mesh with the team or the culture of the firm. And so, yeah, it's great having a dynamic players that can do much more than one function. But coming into the team, and it can be disruptive if it's done without suddenly without integration, and then also just need to make sure that it's the right that they share the same values and culture.
Yeah, well, and I agree with you, Sam. I would also say that's why I think developing a culture where you are authentic and have transparency
Mm.
about your overall business strategy and having those open dialogues with everyone. I mean, all employees understand that.
Yeah.
And also creating a culture where your talent feels open and free to speak and raise their voice and say, you know what, I think we have a critical need here. Is there anybody on this team that could maybe fill that critical role? And having the employees, all employees, part of that discussion is really, I think, a key to success.
Right.
And it shouldn't just be a little pocket of people making those decisions.
Yeah, and I agree, but also there are some deep-seated, when we're looking at company culture and then we're looking at country culture. I mean, there's certain aspects where that might be different or difficult in different countries. Would you agree, Sumit?
Oh,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where, after you've assessed your people, you need to check if they're ready for the next level or ready for staffing the role. And we also need to make sure we've factored in their own ambitions into this entire scheme of things. And then decide on what kind of individual developmental interventions will go into the picture and what kind of group interventions which the entire organization needs to take a shift towards need to happen. And of course, the right side, I'm not really going to go into too much of detail, but the idea is if you do this, it'll help you in an indirect benefit is you get to attract the right kind of talent. of course, you develop and you retain your most talented people. And that's really, really key to having succession plans at work.
So, Sumit, what's your opinion? How often would we do a talent review? I mean, I know it depends on the size of the company. I think with the large companies, it happened once a year. Um, I would like to make that a more often process. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
So with what's called real-time performance management or a continuous feedback mechanism, Shar, I think the talent review also kind of needs to keep happening. We need to keep looking at what people are doing right, wrong, where they need support or corrective action. And again, being fond of sports analogies, almost like the manager of a sports team shouting out feedback from the sidelines and saying, "Hey, you got to track that player, or you're not making the right runs," and correcting feedback in real time and saying that if you want to win the game and if you want to succeed, these are things you need to start fixing right now, rather than waiting for half the season to go by and then say, I've spotted a trend in the last 10 games, this is what you did wrong. So
Right.
that can be a more formal structured process, um, but at the same time, the power of continuous feedback, the power of
Mm-hmm.
giving people the timely interventions that cannot be discounted. So I'd
Right.
say once a year, a talent review just to see who's in the pipeline and where, but making sure we're having frequent dialogues with them, saying, how do you feel about your development? What are things we're doing wrong, we can do better? And also giving the people, giving that person feedback on time, rather than saying, um, I noticed this in 2021.
Yes.
It's 2022 right now. You didn't do all these things. Hence, I'm sorry to say you're not really um, looking likely to be the next successor.
I think absolutely. I think that's part of the challenge with an integrated talent management approach, using traditional performance evaluations and looking at the progress of and the accomplishments one time a year when somebody had a very successful project or somebody had a little mistake that happened 1 year ago or 6 months ago. It really needs to be just in time discussion and part of the culture of ongoing. I mean, so it needs to be day to day. We talk about our talent, the good and the not so good, the areas that we can help improve and areas that are great accomplishments. And then identifying that potential talent for the next position that's going to be open. So I think it integrates with the other aspects of talent management strategy, such as performance, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
It absolutely happens all the time.
And the other thing, so that's a great point, Shar. The other mistake that we often make is we tend to combine performance and potential and say that a high performer is also a high potential employee, which is not right. So I could
Yeah.
be a good, solid, again, for want of a better example right now, I could be a great software programmer, but I may not have the right kind of skill to lead a team. But if we were to assume that great programmers also make great leaders, we're just setting up for failure in the longer term. And that's what this particular slide also mentions. This is a study by Gartner that a significant chunk of our people are actually they don't really belong in the succession program. So
Right.
we're setting them up for failure. We're also setting ourselves as organizations up for failure.
I absolutely agree. I think that's a very good point. It seems like if somebody gets an excellent rating on their performance evaluation or, a 5 out of 5, whatever you want to call it, all of a sudden we assume that's going to be our next department leader.
Hmm.
And that's going to be our next manager. This has actually happened to me where I identified somebody I thought was going to be a great manager. And through the assessments that we're using and talking and having conversation, she did not want to be a manager. That was
Right.
not her passion. And it was interesting because we just assumed, well, good grief, you're just so, I mean, you are a top performer and you're excellent. She's like, yeah, but that's what I love to do. I'm
Yeah.
not really interested in managing other people.
Mhm.
And so
That's a
there were assumptions made. Let's put her in this box.
Yeah, great point. I mean, a classic mistake a lot of companies do. I
Right.
mean, and it's amazing how widespread that is. It is a very common mistake.
And that's why to make it successful, we need to follow these 3 steps. We need to assess people, and of course, we need to assess them using the right tools and right mechanisms. We need to make sure we're aligned in terms of what the organization's needs are, what the individual's needs are, and what does the role demand as well. And then based on that, we focus on the mobility aspect of it. So like Shar said, not necessarily vertical, but what other directions in which we can shape people's careers to create meaning for the critical roles that we've identified. And that's where the overall talent management strategy comes in. And it impacts retention and engagement as well, because um, I'll just add a different dimension to it. The workforce experience really goes up when people know they've got those opportunities. And again, this is research. Um, I don't remember the precise number. I think it's more than 60%. So over 60% people feel it's easier to find a job outside your organization than inside. And that directly speaks to the need for better succession planning and a more cohesive talent management strategy, as well as the need for career mobility.
That's great. I mean, that's just shocking because, you know, that when companies understand the cost of turnover, and I mean, they spend so much money on programs to retain people and attract people, and then just to have them leave because you're not focusing on development or proper succession or right placement is tragic. So good point.
Absolutely. And I think so here's again to my point. You've got a benefits program, let's say, where you're offering tuition assistance or tuition reimbursement. And perhaps someone's going to school to be in a very different type of profession. You can integrate your benefit strategy with, for example, tuition assistance with, did you realize that if you're studying marketing and you're really ambitious about marketing, that we happen to have a growing marketing department over here? And, you know, let's talk about the potential to transfer over to marketing.
Mhm.
And I think a good leader to identify that talent and realize that that person's going to school for that type of thing. I think an employee's going to say, you know what, you're right. I want to stay with this company because you care. It's not like you just want me to stay with you for the next 30 years in this department. I can transfer around to other sections of this company. Not only that, I might be able to move to another part of either the United States or the world globally. And but it's good. It's good to have that conversation with your employee after you've gone through these 3 steps of assessing and aligning their potential talent, growing, developing, and then advancing or using career mobility. That takes a great talent of a good leader to be able to do that.
Mhm. So I know that we're having a wonderful conversation here, but I just do want to say that we do have about 10 minutes left, and
Okay.
a lot of great things that Sumit you need to share and so forth. But while we're at this juncture, I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. And so if anybody's interested in learning a little bit more about the TMA assessment and how this can help and how it can be used in succession planning and development, feel free to sign up there, or if you'd like to talk to Sumit more about this process, he's happy to jump on a call with you. So go ahead. Go ahead, Sumit.
And the part at the bottom, it just talks about how the TMA method, which I think is an absolutely fantastic way of talent management. It deals with succession, among other things. So it's a great way to develop people. So you create what kind of competency profile you require for different roles in the organization. You assess people, you can administer different kinds of tests to them to gauge where they're at right now and find out what's their competency level. You can match individuals to their aspiration, you can match them to critical roles as well. Decide on what kind of development career paths they should have, and finally end with providing them the right mobility. And like Shar said, it would help you in flipping the question from asking people why you're leaving to uh, preempting it and saying what would make you stay.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's this journey really would make it come alive. And breaking it up into a little more detail, so when we're assessing people, we list down what the roles are, what the specific talents are needed to succeed in that role, and run different kinds of assessments for them. And an example of the kind of results the TMA gives you is what Sam was talking about earlier, that there's no right or wrong, there's no black or white. It's a positive psychology based tool, and it measures the kinds of traits that you display. So um, being team oriented is fine, being autonomous is absolutely fine as well. There's no negative consequence associated with either one of them, just that a certain role might require you to be more team oriented than, say, a lone wolf. So for that role, your suitability might be indicated by the kind of talent you display, and that's all there is to it. There's no uh, negativity, or there's no typecasting you into any kind of a bucket. So some of the tools, and pretty much all of them are covered under the TMA set of tests. You can have aptitude to measure your suitability for different kinds of roles, whether it's sales or operations or manufacturing or something else. There's a personality component to it, which measures what kind of um, uh, motives you have, what really gets you going and helps you in taking the next step forward. You can do 360-degree assessments based on the competencies, and the tool is pretty comprehensive in the sense that it's got over 50 competencies which you can modify to a certain extent as well. So there are 53 to be precise.
Mhm.
Uh, interviews,
Yeah,
of
these
course, are
are,
not.
and those
Sorry.
competencies are all found on the competencylibrary.com if you're interested in looking at it. It's a open
Yeah.
source, so you can use them with or without the tool, and it's pretty handy source there.
And I love this. I will say one of the learnings of utilizing this assessment for my personal company is the perception that taking an assessment or a test is kind of intimidating to employees. Because I think what we learned in my company, my employees that were taking this particular assessment thought, oh my gosh, am I going to get this question wrong? Am I going to answer the wrong way so that I don't get my next promotion or get to transfer to where I want to go? So culturally, it was interesting to learn that feedback from my employees, particularly my leadership team. And they're like, are you saying that if I participate in this assessment, it's actually a positive thing and it's okay if the answer is not exactly what you expected? And I said, absolutely. This is how we can positively coach and talk about your passion, what you're excited about in a positive way. So no, this is not a negative test.
Yeah.
This is a coaching tool. This is a discussion tool. And so I think, Sumit, that's what you and I were talking about too. I think that some of the older, I guess, former, I should say, personality assessment tools, I think were perceived as a negative thing, because if you didn't answer it the perfect way, you might not get that next job you really want.
Absolutely. So also newer research into personality, Shar, does kind of discredit some of those tools to a certain extent, and says that you can't really put people into buckets or types. So a tool that says personalities out of 4 types or 20 types or 16 types is it's just unfair. You can't really bucket 7 billion people into a certain number of fixed buckets. So there has to be you've got to look at the kind of traits they display, and it's got to be along a spectrum, not really more of a binary. You're either this or that. So you can definitely be somewhere along a range. And also uh, the modern personality theories do say that your personality is flexible to a certain extent. So, depending on the context, for example, somebody who's, say, an introvert is not 100% of an introvert, and their friends might actually be surprised that a tool says they're introverted, because the person's personality is a bit different when they're with people they know or with people they consider as friends. And
Absolutely. And sometimes the introverted are not necessarily introverted with certain different types of people, right?
absolutely, I mean, they could just be
But
choosing
yet
to not
they
talk to
got
us.
put in a bucket as that, but that might not
Absolutely.
necessarily be the truth.
Absolutely. So some of the insights that this assessment provides is what kind of work environment a person is likely to appreciate, what kind of communication style will bring out the best in them, what's their learning style. So you can fine tune your developmental interventions for them accordingly. Um, and the tool also builds in ways to provide them with the right kind of coaching advice. And if you're doing selection interviews or if you're doing developmental interviews as well, what are some of the questions to probe them on? So these are some
Mm-hmm.
aspects that you can get and use them to match with what exactly is that you're looking at. So
Okay, I just
uh,
have to throw this in. That last slide, you showed it on a cell phone or a smartphone, pardon me. I would tell you having it in your hand just in time, that's very helpful for leaders to be able to have all those bullet items at their fingertips on their smart devices. And don't be looking at my phone. But anyway, having that at their fingertip to be able to sit with their employee, most likely the employee has a smart device, but be able to put the phone down and have the crucial conversation and make it easy and user friendly is also very important. So,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
great image there.
it's great. And great. It's great that the TMA methodology is mobile ready.
Right.
And once we've matched the personal characteristics of people with the profiles we created in the TMA, we can figure out what's the degree of fit of that person with a particular position. And it doesn't necessarily have to be 100% fit, but we can define criteria saying um, a 50% fit or a 60% fit is also fine with me. And we're willing to take a call on that person. Or you can also decide, I mean, there are various ways to use this information. You can also do things like saying somebody who's an 80% match is somebody we're willing to promote right away. Somebody who's 50%, we'd like to give them a bit of a developmental journey, wait for the next annual or 6 monthly kind of a talent review and see if they've progressed. If yes, we're willing to give them a chance then. And to advance them, these are some of the things you can do. So lots of text there, but broadly it talks about classroom training. It talks about giving them real life projects and on the job experiences, helping them in reflecting on what they've learned and charting out their own journey forward. Um, a bit of coaching and practicing, and also helping other people learn and come up the curve. So that's broadly what this entire wheel talks about, and that is what sets people up for success. And this is pretty much the final slide that I have. Um, kind of recaps what we spoke about earlier. So step number one, ensure that you're aligned to your business strategy. Look at all the critical roles, not only the C-suite positions, but whatever impacts your business. Make sure hiring and succession are integrated in the sense that when you bring in a person, they know what kind of careers would exist at your organization and they're excited about it.
Right.
Not necessarily that you're promising a young graduate joining in a CEO position in 10 years, but you can show them different kinds of career paths and some of the journeys that have been undertaken by people in your firm. Um, some people agree, some disagree with this point, but in my opinion, it's a good idea to keep people informed that they're being seen as potential successors and they've got a great career to look forward to. And finally, like we've been saying, make sure that your succession plan is not a standalone thing. It links into your business strategy, it links into your talent strategy, and I see no reason why that shouldn't work. um, if it doesn't,
Absolutely.
there are always us expensive consultants to help you out.
Exactly. Excellent presentation. Really good information.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Sumit. We are at the top of the hour. So,
Yep.
a great conversation. And once again, Sumit, thank you so much for sharing your
Mhm.
deep expertise on this topic. And Shar, I mean, just the commentary on how this has been applied to your business and also in your previous career has been great. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it's excellent. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We are so excited. And do you happen to know who's on our agenda for next week, Sam?
Oh,
As we're
yes.
wrapping up.
Yeah, so next week we're going to be talking with Wendy again about bringing people on and developing them in the workforce. And so she's going to have it's great to have Wendy Graham back on the call. So
yeah, she's outstanding. Well, thank you, everyone. We really appreciated it. We want to end our session. Please share on your social media and have a fabulous week. It is almost, well, it is spring, isn't it?
yeah,
So anyway, enjoy. Let's watch those little seeds bloom. All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.